Let's say you're on a PowerPoint presentation. I'll go up here to the very start. You know probably that if you just press the F5 key, I'm going to press that now, that it goes into PowerPoint mode. You hit the escape key to come back out. Also, if you're on any particular slide, let's say you're in the PowerPoint presentation and you jump out of it and then you want to go right back in exactly at that place, the fastest way is to hold the Shift key down and press F5, and that starts right at the current slide. So also, if you are in your presentation and you want the screen to go blank, in other words, you're somewhere in the presentation but you are in presentation mode and you want to have the entire attention of the group as opposed to still having your slide deck up, if you tap the B key, as in black, the screen goes black. When you hit any other key, it comes back. If you should ever have a reason for it, if you hit the W key, it goes white, and then any key will go back. So that's kind of a quick tip just to grab the attention of the group. Plus, if you hold down the Windows key, that's the key in the bottom left part of your keyboard, hold down the Windows key and do P, as in Paul, it brings up a little bar across the front where you can determine, do you want to duplicate your monitors, extend the monitor, or have the projector only? So that's a very fast way. I know sometimes I've seen some notebooks and PCs, when they're hooked up to the projector, you have a problem getting them over to the screen, and here's a quick way that you can do that. If you have an issue with your screen or your PC going to sleep, you want to keep it awake, like it needs a little caffeine to stay awake, there's actually a program called Caffeine. It's by Zorn Software, so if you were to go to Google and type in Zorn Software space caffeine, it would bring up that, give you the ability to download that little program. The Zorn is spelled Z as in zebra, H-O-R-N, software.co.uk. But if you just typed in Zorn Software, that's Z-H-O-R-N, software, and then caffeine, it'll bring it up where you can find it. I found that to be very helpful because it just keeps your PC awake. I'm going to go to a blank presentation and I'll show you how, if you have something on the screen and you want to align it, how that works, because it's real easy. First, I'll put some things on the screen. Okay, if you were to have these three things on the screen and for whatever reason you wanted to have them vertically aligned, you could click on each one. Now notice when I just click, left click on each one highlights independently. If I click on one and hold the control key down and click, then you're able to select them individually or unselect them individually. So I'm going to select all three. Once they're selected, up underneath the drawing tools in the format, there's an Align Objects drop down. So if you do the Align, if I want to align these to the left, I click that and you'll see they all line up on the left hand, which means that all those left hand handles are all in alignment. If you wanted them to be, if they're different sizes as these are, you could align center, and that will line them up center. Now, if you're also struggling getting them equispaced apart, if you go to Align and you say distribute vertically, you'll see that it will put them all right in line. So once they are all highlighted, you can also, what I find is helpful, is use just your arrow keys. When I press the arrow keys, it will move the whole group around to give me the kind of scene that I want as far as white space around them and so forth. Now, should you want to, I'll click off of it, so they're all independent now. Should you want to change them, if you click on them once and then right click, you can go down to Format Shape down at the bottom. When you click on Format Shape, it gives you the ability up here at the top to, under the Format Shape, to either fill them with something, where in this case it's got a solid fill, you see that there. You can also make them transparent. Should you want to put them on top of something, you could have it transparent. So if I were to go up and let's say I wanted that over some piece of text, I could insert a text box And then that could go right on top of it. And what you see now, though, is because I entered the text secondarily, then it's always going to be on top. But what if you wanted the text to be behind, or you wanted this box to be up front? I could right-click that box and go down here and go Bring to Front. Now you notice not only that it brought it to the front, but you see how it's transparent. So if I move my transparency back, it covers it up entirely. So you see how that works. Now you can also go in, you could choose no fill at all if you just want a box around something, and then you go down to the line and you're able to change the color of your line. I typically use a red line only because it just stands out. I typically don't use red text, red boxes, and so forth, so the line stands out. Also, I usually make the width of the line 3 points if I want to circle something, and it just makes a nice bold box that I can put on top of things. Something else you may not know is that when you do drop any of these shapes in, you may not realize, but it actually has the ability to type inside of it. So if I just type something, it will automatically go inside that box and automatically center it. Now, as with other text, you can change it's centered up here, but I can make it left justified, right justified, or put it in the middle up here in the paragraph box up here at the top. You also have the ability, if you see that little turn thing, you can turn the arrow. Again, get these where you want them, and you can distribute them vertically or horizontally. And let's say, for instance, we did want to do that. Now you notice the lines that pop up. That's also a good way to make sure that they are aligned as you would want them to be. But if, say for instance, I have this one back over here and I wanted all three of these to line up, and let's say I wanted to add that too. Now the high there, I want to make that in the center, so I'm going to put that there. Now another way to grab all of them would be just to come up here on one side, press down your left mouse key and highlight them all, and then that marquees them all. That gives you the ability to go up here under the drawing tools, click on drawing tools and then align, and then you could distribute horizontally, which it's going to look at the outside two and then distribute all four equally across the screen. Now something also that I see often would be if there's a slide with a lot of text on it. So I'm going to add some more text to this slide. Now, for whatever reason, let's say I wanted this to be indented. What I see oftentimes is people will space over, and then they'll come down to the next line and space over, but it doesn't space over. So they end up with kind of a garbage-looking piece. So I'm going to press Control-Z, which does an undo, and I'll show you another way to do this. If you wanted to space all that text over, and I would highlight it all, and I would come up to these tab buttons, and the bottom one will do the second and subsequent lines. The top one does all of them. So now if I change the right hand side so it reformats the text, it still stays lined up. This is far better than using the space bar to try to space stuff over. So you'll notice that up at the top, when I'm in this paragraph where it's been spaced over, you've got both of the little tab things up at the top in the same place, but if I click up here and hide there, you'll notice it moves back over. If I wanted them all in the same place, if you press Control-A, it highlights everything, and then I move these back over, and now we're back to where we were. All right, let me show you how to work with some pictures. So if I go in and I insert, say I want to insert a picture, I insert online pictures, this automatically takes you to Bing, and it's going to search for pictures that don't have copyright information. They've been licensed for reuse. So if I do person, it brings up these people. Usually you don't get a lot, and I'm going to show you something else you can do later, but I'm going to show all web results. That shows them all. So here you have to be careful about copyright stuff, but I'm just going to take one and show you how it works. We'll do this guy, for instance, and I'll show you how that works. So I insert that kid. I'm going to grab the corner bar, and I'm going to make him smaller. Let's move this guy out of the way. Move him up here. Now, you see he's looking to the left. But what if and you should always have your images, if you have any people, have them looking into the slide as opposed to away from the slide, unless you want them to look away from the slide. But in this case, I've got him on the right. But what if I wanted him on the left? So I'm going to move it down, highlight everything. I'm going to move all of that over to the right. And then I want him to be on the left. But the problem is now he's looking the wrong way. So how do I move him? How do I get him to change his eyes? Well, you just have him change the whole image. So you grab one side of it and you just flip him over. And now you've got the guy looking the other way. So that works really well unless you've got some text in there, like there's a road sign or something in there, but you have somebody walking in a direction, you want them to walk the other direction, you just flip it over and then automatically they're walking the other direction. Now, if I wanted to crop that guy so that all I wanted was his head, then what I'd want to do would be, again, I'd highlight the picture, I would come up under these picture tools, and I would click on crop. Now you'll see it has a different kind of handle on it. So if I want to crop it with just his head, I just grab the handle, slide it over, and you'll notice that it just dims the rest of it. But as soon as I click on the outside, that's all I've got. And at that point, I can also now resize the image. Looking up at the top, once that is clicked, you also see we've got a different number of frame options. So if I use that little all the way down button there, down arrow, I can just go over these and see what the different options look like in order to frame that particular picture. You know, typically I use this one. It's square corner, makes it kind of stand out from the slide. Now you'll also notice that if I wanted to align that, let's say with the rest of this, then I could just click that and maybe the square align middle, and now it aligns it along that middle. Now if you ever have a situation where, because I put that guy on last, this guy now you'll notice is behind him. So as I said before, I can either grab this one, right click it, and either bring that to the front, or I can click him, right click it, and send to the back. Either way, it does the same thing. It takes whatever you're working with, a graphic, a picture, whatever, and it moves it to the back. So let's go to Creative Commons. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to load Chrome. I prefer Chrome, but Chrome, Internet Explorer doesn't make any difference. And if I go to, you start typing in Creative, generally speaking, you're going to see Creative Commons. You click on Creative Commons Search, and then if I just want person, and so these have been labeled for reuse with modifications. I can also go down and I can just have labeled for reuse. This is a good one to do. Okay, here's this one. Now at this point, if I want to add them, I could right click. Incidentally, you notice how it's kind of checkerboard behind there? That means that background is going to be transparent. So if I copy that image and then I come back to my presentation and I paste it, you notice how you can see the images behind it. So I'm gonna move it up here where I can grab the corner, grab it down here, I'm gonna make it smaller. If it's clicked, then I'm probably going to get this format picture. So if I go up here to the size and properties, drop down the size, see it's like 20 inches high. If I just do 4 inches high, that's going to make it smaller. Now the problem is now you can't see it. It's up here at the top, but you can't see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this slide, and just so I can get it in view, I go down here to the bottom where it talks about how large this image is, and I'm going to make that smaller. When I make it small enough, you can see all the other stuff that's there. So I get down there, move it down, and then I'm going to come back up to 60%. Now, now you've got the image that can actually be placed over something. And let's say I want him to walk the other way though. move that person that way. Now you got this guy looking down at that person. But what if you don't have that background and you want it to be transparent? So I'm going to go back to the person walking. I'm going to go back up and let's try to find something else. Okay, I'm going to choose this young lady. I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy. Oops. I'm going to copy the image. I'm going to go to my presentation. I'm going to paste her in. Again, I'm going to click. I'll go to the size. Let's make her about 4 inches tall. I'm going to go down so I can grab her, move her down into the slide, make it larger again. Now you see, here's the problem. You can't see through her. You can't see through the image. It's a white background, but you can't see through it. Well, the nice thing about PowerPoint is it gives you the ability to choose a color to make transparent. So I click on her, and then if this color option is not up at the top, you'll want to click on Format over here underneath the picture tools, and you drop down on the color option. You do Set Transparent Color. That gives you this little pen, and just pick an area in the white space and click it. And now you can see that she has her foot in the box. But that gives you a transparent background. Okay, I copied these images over. Now, we're actually on one of the templates that we use. And you'll notice it has the copyright information at the bottom, sales training, whatever up at the top, and NYP marketing solutions. You'll also notice that I can't click on any of that, so that means I can't get rid of it. But if for one reason or another you did want to get rid of it on a particular slide, if you right-click the slide and then you click on Format Background, it gives you the ability to hide the background graphics. So if I click on that, then it hides those graphics. Now you don't want to apply it to all, but if there's some reason you just want to hide it on this one slide, that's the way you do it. Now, let's say for instance you did want to change something on the background graphics. If you'll notice up at the top there's a View option. When you click View, you can actually look at the Slide Master. The Slide Master, when you click on that, this is where it is set up. So if I go up to this very top one, it's the largest, it's usually number 1, and the things that are in the top one, they're what we call the children. These slides underneath carry everything that's in the top. So if I'm on the top one, then you notice that now I can click on that and do something with it, or I can click on that and do something with it. I can change the style or the font or the size or whatever. Now, marketing probably wouldn't want us to do that, but that's where these things would be changed. If you did change something, then when you close the master view, typically they'd be reflected in your slides. So at this point, let's say we wanted to title this. So if I want to move this slide, I can just slide it down to wherever I want it. I go up to the top, and that's it. Now I go to this next slide. Now the next slide, you'll notice now if I right-click this and go to Layout, it shows me that that's the title slide layout. That's the one that is highlighted. If I go to this next one and right-click and go to Layout, you notice that's a blank page. Well, the nice thing about this is that if you're working on a slide and it gets messed up and you want to put it back in the right format. So let's say type here, I put something in there and I've got for whatever reason something goofy. It's too small or it's too large or whatever. Then I can always right click it and do Reset Slide. When I reset the slide, it goes right back to what it should be according to the template. Now, this is helpful sometimes, sometimes it's not. If I wanted to have some bulleted text here and I wanted to conform to the template, I would go down here to the layout and I would change it to interior page. And if you notice in this, it's got the page, it's got those little dots around for the bottom part. So when I change to that, now I've got the click to add text. So if I go, this is line 1, 2, 3, oops, and 4. And then when I tab over, it gives me that sub-bullet. again, and then if I shift tab, it takes me back to the left-hand rail. Now here's something a lot of people don't know, is that I can actually move this up without having to cut and paste. If you put the cursor right over the dot or in the left-hand side, get it to where it's got the little crossbars, and then as I move it up, it moves that line. So I can move this piece up and it stays at the same tabbed in place. If you notice now, let's say for whatever reason you wanted these dots to be right underneath that first line. Well, when I click in this area, remember when we talked about the markers up here, the tabs up here, I could move each one, but a much easier way to do it is if I highlight one and then I hold the control key down and highlight the other, then at that point I can move them both over. So I'm going to move this in just a tad, and I'm going to move this in other way. Right underneath there. Let's move these in a little bit more. But you'll notice what it's doing is that it allows me to move things in different places but move them all at the same time and keep them all aligned. So now, frankly, I think there's too much space in there, so I can move those over. If I wanted to change what those look like, if I do the drop down under the bullet, we might change them to those. We might change them to like a little check mark, like if you're making a check mark list or something. But I don't like this, and I would really like to reset it back to the way it was. So I'm going to right click over here, go to reset slide, and there I am back again. So it's a nice way to get things, if you've gotten things kind of messed up, and also don't forget Control Z, which is the undo button. Now, if for whatever reason, let's say I wanted to make a picture of this slide. So in other words, I would need to copy this. So if you hold down the Alt key and press your print screen key, it's going to copy this current window. So now if I go up here, I right click, then when I paste it, it pastes that window in there. Now it just looks like the PowerPoint slide, but it's actually not. So what we're going to want to do is going to want to make it come a little bit smaller, and I want to crop this. And remember when we cropped it, we just clicked on the image. We come up here, we're looking for that crop, so I'm going to click Format. Here's the crop. Come over here, I'm going to crop it to I'll crop it a little bit smaller. Crop that a little bit smaller. Let's leave her in there instead of cutting off her head, like so. I'll click on the outside. Now I've got this piece. Now, since I want it on this slide, I'm going to make it a good bit smaller. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to do the drop down. Now in this case, normally, as I said earlier, I'd normally do that. But if this is like a screenshot and I want to add it, a little bit more maybe personality to it, I could do it this way. I could do it this way. Just go around and figure out how you'd want it to look. And so let's say I wanted to end up looking like that. Then now when I'll make this a little bit larger. Right, so again, if I wanted to go in presentation mode right now and see what that looked like, I would do Shift F5 instead of F5, because if I did F5, it would go to the very first slide. I do Shift F5, and there I am. So this is great if you want to do kind of a walkthrough of a system and you want to do a screen print of the way your system looks. You can do the screen print and then paste it in here and then crop it, add a border around it, whatever. Now let's say you also want to insert a video. So let's go down to slide 5. I'm going to right click and I'm going to look at my layouts, and I'll probably use this blank page because that gives me the title. Let's say I just do video, and I want to insert a video. So I'm going to go up here and insert. Now over on the right hand side, it's got a drop down for video. If I drop that down, and this works really very nicely, you've got the option of either inserting an online video or a video on my PC. And click down video, and then I'll do video on my PC. I want to put that video in, and I would insert it. So the nice thing about adding a video when you have the video on your PC is that it makes a very clean, typically non-stopping type of video. Most of the time when you have trouble with it buffering and it's stopping in the middle of a presentation, it's because you're getting it off the net, or you're getting it off the network drive, or it's coming from somewhere else other than your actual PC that you're on, and that's what causes you the problems from time to time. So if I start this presentation right here with the Shift F5, then you'll notice that it's got the little play button, and it really works very well. Now there's another trick that I like, and that is if you know the video's coming up and you want it to play automatically, and I really don't want the black bar at the top or at the bottom. You'll notice the background is white, so why don't you cover the background up with something white. Now this brings up animation. If I want this video to play immediately, I need to go to Animations and add an animation, and I want it to play. Now, when I right click, I do the drop down on Start, and I want it to start automatically. Now, if I go back to the previous slide, I start there, and then now I do click, it goes to the next slide, starts automatically. What I don't want to see when it starts automatically, I don't want this black bar at the top, and I don't want the control bar at the bottom. I just don't. I want it to play all the way through, and then I'm done with it. So in order to cover that up, I come here, I'll want to insert a shape. The shape is going to be a box, a rectangle. Now that's going to go all the way across the top, and it'll take a little bit of playing with, but let's say it went down about that far. Now that's black. What I want to do to start with to figure out where we are is to make that solid but no fill. So now that's got it. You can see a little bar around there. And then I want another one at the bottom, so I'm going to copy that, bring that down to the bottom. Now when it plays, Shift F5, see I'll need to move this up just a little bit. I'll need to move that down just a little bit. So I'm going to do Escape to get back here. When I highlight it once, then now I've got the ability to do my up arrow, move that up. If that needs to be a little bit smaller, I'll make it a little bit smaller, and then move this down. That looks pretty good. That's going to cover up the black. That's going to cover up the bottom bar. So now we can go to that. Now we've got these two boxes. We want to change those. So make sure I highlight that. Do the fill. It's going to be a solid fill, no line. Move this out a little bit so I can see where we are. And we're going to fill it with white. We'll grab the bottom bar. Solid line, no line, solid fill. Fill it with white. Now that I've got to make a little bit larger. When I run from here, click, you see just the image, and that's going to play all the way through. So that's how you add a video and keep it and have it start running immediately. I want to add some animation. So in this case, I want to animate this piece. So I click on Animation at the top, and I click on Add Animation. I generally use Fade. I don't know, I just like the way it looks. So I would use Fade. Now once I've added that fade, I'm going to look at the animation pane. So I click on that. I no longer need this format background. Give myself a little more room over here, and you notice this is how it is animated. So if I were to run this slide, it looks like this. Nothing there to start with. Click once and they all show up. Well, I don't want them all to show up at the same time. I want them to show up one at a time. Well, you notice it all has 1 down here, which means they're all going to show up at exactly the same time. Since these are all highlighted, I can do that down arrow and do start with click. So now when I do Shift F5 to run the slide, I get my picture up. I click once. This is line 1. I click again. Line 2. Every time I click, I get another option showing up. This is useful when you want to cover several options, but you don't want to spill the beans. You don't want to tell them what it's about ahead of time. So I'm going to escape out of here. Now, this guy, I want to come in, but I'd like it to spin in or something different. So I click on it once. I add animation. Now, these are the different options that are here. So if I wanted this to grow and turn, which is what I normally do for screenshots and stuff, it looks like this. And let's say I wanted that to come up after it shows number 3. Whenever you add an animation, it puts it at the bottom automatically, but you can just slide these up or down. So if I slide that up to under 3, now that's going to happen when I click after 3. So I'll start there again with Shift F5. I click once, click twice, 3, and the third time it brings up that image, and I go the rest of the way through. But let's see another thing, another improvement. You don't want to have to click to have this as line 1 show up. So an easy way to get around that is simply to start with previous, or you can start after previous. I usually do start after previous. It just gives it a little bit more movement. So when I start the presentation now at this slide, you'll notice it shows this is line 1. Immediately I haven't clicked anything. And then you can click through the rest of these. Everything else happens as you would expect it to. Now, for whatever reason, you want this guy to disappear. So let's say after the left rail, you want this to go away. I can click on that, add animation, go down here to disappear, and let's say for whatever reason I want it to bounce out. You know, I don't use that often, but let's say I did want it to bounce out. Here it is, it puts it at the bottom. That's going to be an exit, and I'll change that to where, yeah, we'll go ahead and leave it at that. And I want to have it happen after 4, so I'll move that up to there. Now, if you think about it, what's going to happen is I'm going to click and it's going to go show 4. I'm going to click again and the picture is going to bounce out. I'm going to have to click again for this next one to show up. So instead of leaving that as a click, I'm going to make that a start with previous. So I'll show you how the animation works now. I do Shift F5 to start it. There's my first line, 2, 3. There's my picture, it shows up. Tabbed again, 4. Now when I click it this time, that goes away and left rail shows up at the same time. And then tabbed over, and that's the end. So that's how you add animation and how you remove animation. And when you add it, up here you get all of these entrances, all of these emphasis ones, and all of these exits. Generally speaking, I don't use the emphasis, it's just a personal preference. I will use the entrance and I will use the exit from time to time when I want to get rid of stuff. Now, if for whatever reason your PowerPoint gets too crowded and it becomes confusing as to what's there and what's not, you can always just duplicate the slide with Control-C. I clicked over here on the left, Control-C, and then Control-V to paste. And now I can start the second, once I go through all of this, I can start the second slide essentially looking the same way and then do additional stuff to it. So I hope these tips have helped, and if I can be of any help helping you with anything, the main thing with a PowerPoint is remove everything you don't absolutely have to have. So good luck on your PowerPoints. Keep them simple and short. Get the people into practicing, and you'll have very effective training sessions.